Welcome to the This Lyric That Truth podcast with Brandon Heath. Hi, Brandon.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, thanks for making time to do this. We chatted a couple of weeks ago when you were in town in Muskegon at the Unity Music Festival,
Yes.
and you let me know that you have a new album coming out. So I want to talk about that for sure. But the name of this podcast, it's called the This Lyric That Truth podcast. And it's
Love it.
always so fun to talk to artists that have written the songs that people are singing along with in their cars or at home from Christian radio. And
Mhm.
I'm just wondering, I was just looking up some of the songs we played of yours over the years, songs like Give Me Your Eyes and See Me Through It and I'm Not Who I Was. And I'm wondering if you could, before we get to your new stuff, maybe talk about a lyric that people tend to really connect to when they're talking to you about your music from one of those songs.
Hmm. Well, lately it's See Me Through It. Um, I always hear people say, I love that lyric. Things are getting real. Jesus, take the wheel. I was actually with somebody last weekend in Colorado, and they were always saying, well, they were actually from the military, and they would always say, before they jump out of a plane, they would always say, Jesus, take the wheel, which that's not my line. That's Carrie Underwood's line. but,
Yeah.
but for me, I think actually it was kind of cool having written that song because I actually wrote it uh, when there was a big military maneuver that was going on. This is in 2021 when we were pulling out of the Middle East. And this actually was one of those guys that happened to be there in Afghanistan. So, number one, you never know who's listening to your music. Um, but for me, that, lyrics could meet people and apply to whatever season of life they're in is always a big one. My other one that people love is really, it's honestly just the simple phrase, I'm not who I was.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people really connect with that song because of simply that phrase. We all need to just recognize that we have changed. And I think the only way that real change can really come about is through the power of God. Um, so it's like a statement or a proclamation of not only faith, but of the power of God.
Okay, so let's go to I'm Not Who I Was. Is there a lyric in that song that people really connect with that you hear about a lot and why is that?
Yeah, well, I think just the simple phrase, I'm not who I was, is a big one for people to say because I think
Mm.
real transformation happens when we put our faith in God. My mom used to say when I was a kid, she was like, people never really change. And I believed that for a long time. But then I came to know the Lord and I've seen other people that really have changed. And I think that God is the one that can bring about real change in people. Other than that, I think maybe she's right. Left to our own devices, we don't ever really change. But I think the power of God can change our hearts.
I totally agree. I totally agree.
Yeah.
When you what's your process of going through writing these songs that we're all singing along to on the radio? Is it personal experience? Is it conversations you're having with people? How do you get inspired to write the songs?
It's all those things you just said. A friend of mine says that when you're reading the scripture or maybe reading a book, look for something that glimmers.
Mm.
And I do that all the time. If something, no, it's not glimmers, shimmers is what he says.
Oh,
It has to shimmer.
shimmer.
So if something shimmers in life, maybe it's, something that somebody says. I actually have these notes. Well, I'm on my phone right now, so I can't look it up, but um, I have this notes section of just phrases and ideas that are like launching off places. Sometimes they end up being the titles of these songs. You know what else is cool is honestly going to a library and seeing book titles.
Hmm.
That's one of those things for me. Just titles in general are very inspiring to me. They're like doors that can open to a creative thought or journey, and so that's usually how it starts for me.
So, I mean, take me through the process then. You go to a library
Uh-huh.
and you just look at book titles and you
Yeah,
just sort of try to notice if something is shimmering at you.
exactly. Yeah. If there's a book title, I'm going to look over on my uh let's see. The Last Man on the Moon is one of the books that I can see from where I'm sitting.
Okay.
So, I've never written a song called The Last Man on the Moon, but I could take
Hmm.
that and write a song about maybe someone who is so isolated in life that he feels like he's the last man on the moon, you know?
Yeah.
Or I would take it and say, um, there is a man on the moon and it's me, you know?
Hmm.
Turns out there is a man on the moon and it's
Hmm.
me. And the song would be about like being isolated.
Hmm.
So I think there's always a way to take an idea
Yep.
and morph it into something that might fit for my audience or maybe just the chapter of life that I'm in.
So you're trying to then connect it to not just your experience, but the human experience too.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. The human experience. It doesn't matter what genre of music you're in. I think we all it's about art imitating life, you know? I think that's what we all do. We're just inspired by things that are already kind of
Hmm.
there and we put them into words.
I fear that it's getting more and more difficult to pursue creativity without finding just the resource being online. So, what I mean by that is you were talking about looking at titles of books in a library and going to a library. You know, you used to flip through magazines and read books, and so much is digital now, right? And so, in my own creative process, when I'm trying to come up with things to talk about on the radio show, it's TikTok. You know,
Hmm.
I'm on the app and it's like, what is everybody else talking about? Da, 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 and I'm swiping so fast, and then
Yeah.
I'm swiping and screenshotting, swiping and screenshotting, and so I'm trying to lean into other ways of creatively coming up with things to talk about and to share. And I just kind of wondered, as a songwriter, how you go
Yeah.
about doing that. That's not just a scrolling on your phone.
You know, when it comes to like ideas about how to market, that's about the only thing that scrolling on TikTok or Instagram really does for me. It's like, oh, that's a creative way to market yourself, you know? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's honestly it seems like that's what social media is. It's just marketing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure other people would kind of say there's some creative things to glean from social media, but it's art. I don't know. I've got like some I really love visual cues. Like I've got some art around me right now that I don't know. I write in story. A lot of my songs are in story form, and so I will just write a story. I've actually thought about maybe getting into screenwriting because I really love creating a story.
Mm-hmm.
Not just like a scene, but a whole world. When I make a record, a lot of times I'm kind of creating a whole aesthetic, you know?
Okay. The
So,
songs tend to relate to one another as
yeah.
the story unfolds in different chapters.
Yeah, it's so much easier for me to get my head around that when it's a collect if I'm writing a collection of songs. I kind of want them to all play well together and tell a bigger story rather
Mm.
than just kind of being, a song on their own. That's why I still think listening to full albums is always a good idea because if you're a fan of the artist, you get a maybe more complete picture of what they're trying to convey.
Because how a song goes about getting picked to play on the radio is sort of, it's pulled out. It's like playing one chapter of a book and not the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Interesting.
sure. Yeah.
Talk to me about your latest album. What were you going through when you wrote it? What creatively inspired it? When does it get released?
Yeah. All good questions. New album is called The Ache.
Hmm.
It comes out on September the 6th. So I'm really excited about it. I started writing it the beginning of 2023, actually. Uh, Basically, when my label said, "Okay, it's time for a new record," it's always to me. I say this a lot. It always feels like it's funny for a guy to say this, but it feels like you just found out you're pregnant.
Oh, it's like exciting and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah. But all these new senses all of a sudden awake
Mm,
that were kind of asleep. I just wasn't paying attention, but now all of a sudden I
mm,
have these new I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm writing a record right now and I know what it's about." And so I'm going to be extra sensitive to my surroundings and what's being said, but really just being sensitive about what I'm feeling. So at the time I had just put my mom into an what do you call it? Hospice. It was like I don't know, just extra care facility because she was starting the process of dying, and she had been sick for a while, but it was just it was obvious that she didn't have long to go. So it would have been that previous December that I put her into this facility, and it was an awful, awful time. It was really hard. But I knew I was going to be saying goodbye to her, so I started writing songs just about saying goodbye. And I knew that I was going to miss her, so I wanted all the time that I had with her to be really meaningful. And if there's anything that's unsaid, I need to say it. So that in that way, it was a gift. But
is that awkward? Is that awkward to feel like you have a limited time to say all the things that you want to say?
no, no, I don't find it to be awkward. I find
Mm,
it to be a blessing because people die without warning all the
yeah.
time,
And
and
you had a warning. You had time. Yeah.
yeah, I had time. I think
Mm,
maybe the difficult let's call it the difficulty of it is
mm,
just making decisions for my mom. She's my mom. She's the one who's always made decisions for me. It just seems weird that I'm making decisions for her, and ultimately this was what she wanted. And she was still lucid enough to say yes or no, this is what I want. But you kind of want to interfere and say, no, we're going to fight harder, or we're going to try this new treatment. And that's just not what she wanted.
mm,
So, I'm an only child, and it just fell on my shoulders to make
mm,
sure that she got what she requested.
mm,
But anyway, I knew that I was going to be missing her.
mm,
And so I wanted to write a record about longing and missing.
mm,
And really, it's more about needing. And the ache is a feeling that I had when I was a kid, when my dad had left my mom and I was really missing and needing him. Eventually, he did come back into my life, and we have had a great relationship. Unfortunately, he passed away 7 years ago, but um, there was always that physical needing.
yeah.
It was a feeling that I had that while I'm pointing to my chest, I would feel it right here. And I still feel it for my daughters and for my wife, and we always
Mm.
just call it the ache. I call my wife, I'm feeling the ache right now. So
It's a I've never heard it described like that before, but what a beautiful way to describe what that is and just to be able to say, this is how I'm feeling today. Has your mom passed away?
yeah, she passed away July the 4th of last year, actually. So we're, a month or so since she's like a year since she's passed. And I feel like, I don't know, there hasn't been a ton of sadness this like since the year has passed. There's just times when I miss her. You know, I wish I could. I wish she could see my daughters.
Mm.
She loved being a grandmother. But I just wish she could see them growing up.
How old are your girls now?
They're 5 and 6. So Palmer is 6, Elliston's 5.
Hmm. Started school then a couple weeks ago, probably.
Yep. Palmer's in first grade. Elliston is in pre-K 5.
Hmm.
So
How are you and your wife doing with that transition?
honestly, we are loving it. And both, I mean, they're both at school for 5 days a week, all
Okay.
day. So we are loving the
Mm.
extra time just to, like, CB loves to read, and she's had tons of time to read lately. And, you know, it's not much different for me because
Yeah,
I go to lunch with people all the time, and, it's just part of work.
sure.
Um, but yeah, she's had extra time, and so we have been able to really spend more time together, which has been really nice.
Do you know? I'm not sure how this works on your end because I don't have anything to do with the music side of radio. But do you know, is there a song from that album, The Ache, that's going to be released to radio? Or
Yeah.
did they pick one off of that? And is there a lyric in that one we can look forward to?
Yes. There's already been one single that has come out from the record. It didn't do very well, so you don't know about it. It was called "He Does," and I love that song. I love every song that I've
Mm.
put on this record. I love all my songs.
I
Um,
didn't realize that He Does was from the newer album.
yeah,
Sorry about that.
it's
Okay.
that's okay. It's funny. We release songs differently now.
Okay.
With uh Spotify, we can release songs like 6 months, 8 months before a record even comes out.
Okay.
Where it used to be, a little bit closer to when the record would release. But the second single, which just honestly came out, is called Gospel Truth.
Okay.
And there's an example of a song like I had heard Gospel Truth and I thought, ooh, that's a good title of a
Hmm.
song. Um, so I wrote that back in 2020, actually, like a few months into the pandemic. So it's, I've had it written for 4 years, but it really is just starting to see the light of day. Um, but the chorus says, to answer your question, the chorus says, just because I'm a believer doesn't mean I don't forget that my heart is a deceiver. There's doubts in my head. But I belong to a redeemer who's not finished with me yet.
Just because I'm a believer doesn't mean I don't forget that my heart is a deceiver. There's doubts in my head, but I belong to a redeemer who's not finished with me yet.
I think there is a misperception, or maybe just we've given people the wrong impression as believers that we have it all together, or that we're somehow better than other people. And that could not be more from the truth.
Hmm.
And we're certainly not better. We're not more loved. I don't believe. I think God loves all of us.
Hmm.
But I believe that those of us who have come to know the Lord are not only loved, but we are forgiven.
Hmm.
And so I think that's more what I would like to convey to people, is that I've come to terms with the love that God has for me, and part of the terms that I've come to is that Jesus was his son and that he died for me. That's part of the coming to terms that God loves us. He loves us so much that he gave his only son. Because there's some of us that can't really believe that or buy into it, and that's where I think you're kind of falling short of knowing just how much you're loved by the God of the universe. So, you know, what I want to say in the song is that just because I'm a believer doesn't mean that I got it all together.
Hmm. 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 That's good. So the album releases, it'll be this week. This podcast will air this week. Um, And then what does that mean for you? Then do you go on tour? Do you just hang tight? What does that look like?
Well, I've been on tour for a lot of this summer. I'm currently on a little break right now, but I will be heading back out. My wife jokes at me because I often don't know what my schedule is. I literally have to pull out my calendar and just say, um, I'm present in both places. I'm present when I'm on the road and I'm present when I'm home. Um, so I'm not thinking about what's next, but I know that there is promotion involved in touring. I'm doing a tour in October.
Okay.
So I don't know the details.
That's okay. You don't have to know the details. You don't have to know the details.
I know that I'm home today and I pick up my kids at 3 p.m. That's all I know.
I am so thankful that you took some time to talk with us. I really enjoyed talking to you. Like I said a couple weeks ago at the Unity
Yeah,
Music Festival. We always love it when you make time to come over for that and other
thank you.
events. Brandon, as we wrap up, is what is one thing that would surprise people to learn about you?
Mm, what would surprise people? I feel like I'm an open book. I talk about. Um, I really like to work out in the yard. Like, I should have just said I like to work out and left it there. I like I like to work out in the yard.
Okay.
Um, I love being outside my backyard, but that's the thing. Like people know that because I do a backyard music series that you can find online. It's called Brandon's Backyard. But I also
Well,
like
that
playing.
that's I didn't know that. So tell us where we can find that. We just Google Brandon's backyard and it takes you to YouTube or
Just
something.
Google Brandon's Backyard. But I think what's more important is that people should know that I will play in your backyard.
Ah,
I
that's
will
fun.
come in the months of May and June. I love to play music in people's backyards. It is my favorite thing. I play normal shows, I play normal venues, um,
Why do you do that? Why do you like that?
because I had to do it during the pandemic, and it was really the only way, to make a living
Sure.
during the pandemic. And it was humbling and scary at first, and then I was like, I just connected with my fans in a way that I've never connected with them before. I
Hmm.
don't really like saying the word fans.
Yeah, I get that.
Um, just my friends. Let's call them
Yeah,
friends.
sure.
So to go to their houses, especially in the pandemic when you could not hear live music, it felt like we were breaking the rules, you know?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
felt like but it was totally legal. But just getting together in people's backyards, seeing the host, their face light up. Uh,
How do people like apply for that? Is that all part of the
well,
Brandon's backyard thing or
funny
what?
you should ask. There's a website. It's called brandoninthebackyard.com, or you can email me brandoninthebackyard@gmail.com. Send me a photo of your backyard and tell me what your budget is. And in the months of May and June, I consider backyards to go and play in. Now, realize that there are other people inviting me, so you got to make it enticing. Tell tell me what we're gonna do. Tell me who's coming. Is there a pool that I can swim in?
Mm-hmm.
Will
Mm-hmm.
there be barbecue?
Mm-hmm.
Those are
Those
all things.
that
Those
are
are all
gonna
things.
bump your application up to the top.
That's right. That's right.
How many people do you like playing for in a backyard situation?
I'll do
What's your
like,
ideal?
oh, how many people?
Yeah.
It's been up to 100, but I got to be honest, I'd rather keep it to like 50 or under.
Mm.
When it gets to 100, it just feels like a concert,
Right.
which a
Right.
concert is fine, but
Right.
this is a backyard, like I want to talk to people. I want to be able to like sit down and, have some iced tea with you, and you just can't do that with 100 people. So, I try to keep it 50 or under.
Okay. So 50 people. Who's going to be there? What kind of s'mores are people going to make? Whatever, charcuterie boards, and thinking that people got to go big here.
Tell me. Tell me why I should come, and I'll be there.
And this is all across the United States? Like they fly
Yeah.
in, put you up in a hotel, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
That's so fun.
Pretty much.
Would you rather do a backyard concert or a big one, big concert in like a church or something?
Oh, that's easy. I'd rather do a backyard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I'll put on a good show wherever you see
Sure.
me, but for me, I'm in a place in my career where it's not necessarily about how many people in the room,
Yeah.
but how much fun am I having?
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it's more about to me.
Mm-hmm.
And can I support my family? That's got to be a part of it. So,
well, thanks again for taking time with us. It was really great hearing some of the stories behind the lyrics we all sing along to, getting to know you a little bit better. And congratulations on your new album. Is it The Ache or just Ache?
The Ache.
The Ache. I think a lot of people are going to use that in their vernacular when they're describing feelings of loss and sadness. And
I hope so. I hope so. That's one of the goals that we have as artists have, is putting words to emotions that you didn't know there were words for.
Yeah. Well, we love listening to your music, and we look forward to listening to more of it. Blessings.
Thank you, Ceci. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of This Lyric, That Truth. If you were inspired by today's conversation, feel free to share it with a friend and leave a 5-star review. If you're looking for more hope and encouragement in your music, download the Joy Media mobile app for free wherever you download your apps. I'm Ceci, and I so look forward to sharing more in-depth conversations with you as we talk about the lyrics that encourage us and shape our lives. Meet me back here next week for another episode of This Lyric, That Truth.